Bellows Park to the trading floor of the Merc. He's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Sean Thompson. And this is the Sean Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
Now it's true. The debt is higher, the spending is up, and my calculations have it at 82% of federal spending. 82% is on autopilot, which is why when you hear that.
Now we'll audit all 50 American states looking for potentially massive fraud in the billing of autism treatment. This is happening now amid a recent explosion in spending on autism services. North Carolina alone apparently saw an 11,000% increase in the last 4 years.
Illinois gets $21 billion a year just from Medicaid from the federal government. Total revenue to Illinois, $42.9 billion in entitlement reimbursements. How much of that is fraud? Well, we know Illinois. All of it. My next guest knows that the debt is going higher, the spending is going up, and exactly what the percentage is that's on autopilot. And the reason is he is wicked smart, a doctor of economics, a handsome devil, and one of the few economists that could ever pull off a Van Dyke, E.J. Antoni.
Sean, it is great to be back with you.
And you're in West Texas right now, so those definitely aren't firecrackers. You start hearing popping noises, it's on between the Islamo-Nazis who are trying to take over cartels and the Texans. So you serpentine with that fantastic luxury vehicle I hope you're driving. But when we
serpentine, Shelley, serpentine.
Serpentine. When we talk about spending, you must, in my opinion, always remind the people, it doesn't matter who's in control of the House, who's in the White House, who's in the Senate. I believe 82% of this money is on autopilot, and nobody can stop it because the fix is in. The policies are meant to be frauded to reimburse the states that are most corrupt. What do you think?
Yeah, Sean, I'm so glad you pointed out the autopilot part of this problem, because that really is true. Because we've gotten rid of things like zero-based budgeting, because all of these different departments and programs no longer have to justify every fiscal year how much they're spending, what are the things on which they are spending, et cetera. It does just become like this self-licking ice cream cone, and it just grows and grows. And then you throw the interest on the debt on top of that. A lot of times that doesn't get counted in your obligatory spending, but it should, because you can't just default. And all of a sudden you realize that this is a very serious problem. And we're already actually then at a point, if you do the math, where you can see that we literally have more in mandatory spending than we do in revenue. In other words, it's that downward debt spiral.
Well, it's a functioning bankruptcy, right? And this is why the debt is always going to be the issue, because somehow we've allowed these. If you pretend they're economic illiterate, they have an out. But really what they are people who have crafted policies to enrich themselves, whether we're talking about Ayanna Pressley, Ileana Omar, Nancy Pelosi, or some of the senators. And what I'm enjoying right now is Chris Murphy, who is a particularly weird-looking dude. Do you know Senator Chris Murphy? He's got that comb-over 60s and that little sugar in the tank thing going on. And Chris Murphy was on one of the Sunday shows, and not many people watched. In fact, they're at their lowest viewership in recorded history on the Sunday shows, including 60 Minutes. And Chris Murphy was saying he's outraged, he's flummoxed, because Donald Trump will not spend the hundreds of millions of dollars that have been allocated towards Ukraine. When I say good, stop it all. And this means over what he has control over, he's not spending money. He's fired the federal government employees to lowest record since 66. He's doing a lot of very good things, but because it's on autopilot, he can't really stop it, can he?
Right, exactly, Sean. And this is where it goes back to what we started with. It has become a huge problem where so many of these programs and so much of the spending, basically Congress just authorizes it, and then the president can't simply stop it. And that includes, even if you're doing something like a construction project where the project can actually be completed ahead of schedule and under budget if there's money left over. Believe it or not, sometimes the executive is actually obliged to spend the money. In other words, to waste it because the project's already completed. There's nothing left that they actually need to spend the money on. And this is where things like rescission packages are so important, and we need to be doing more of them. And frankly, shame on the Senate, including guys like Murphy, who have blocked previous rescission packages and attempts to claw back some of the unnecessary spending. And, that's exactly what it is. It is unnecessary. We're not just talking about projects where the Biden administration, signed into law, let's say, that money had to be spent or a project had to be completed. Fine. Maybe the project shouldn't have been done in the first place, but whatever the case, it was done. And now it has been done under budget by the Trump administration. And so there's money left over. There is zero reason why the taxpayer should be obliged to throw good money after bad and should be obliged to literally waste their hard-earned dollars simply because the Democrats don't want to let a rescission package through so that we can prevent all of that waste. That's an absolute disgrace.
So some of the things that I see very, very, very positive moves is the destruction of the eco-Nazi fraud that has been perpetrated on the American people. Trump has dismantled it to virtually nothing. It's the only thing he's done better than that is seal the border. But what he's really done with the elimination of that Chevron doctrine and what he's done with the EPA and the way in which they've pulled all of this nonsense has really forced the UN and these other countries to realize you're not getting the funny money, because the way in which they perpetrate the scam here in America through entitlement subsidies and entitlement reimbursements, that was the foreign policy when it came to green energy boondoggles. So we've shut that off completely. We don't really know the total that'll save America, but I have to believe it's in the hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion a year, because the green energy movement that thrived under the dimwit and diapers has been brought to a stop. So do we know how much money he saved us with just not participating in the greatest con next to Obamacare?
Well, we know it's over $100 billion thus far, because we can look at things like the infrastructure bill, for example, where you essentially had government subsidies for these different loans and these different projects that could not on their own make money. That's why they had to be subsidized. And as soon as you take those subsidies away, the projects fail. Well, by ending those subsidies, what happened? You instantly saw this huge decline in the number of projects that were getting started, whether it was solar, wind, or any of these other boondoggles. So again, the result has been very, very clear, and that's just looking at a few provisions from a single piece of legislation.